Hello everybody and welcome back to Spacedock. Today we look at biomechanical and biological ships, which are a very popular trope for making an alien civilization seem advanced or different. Either they grow their ships rather than build them, or the ships themselves are living beings in their own right, sentience sometimes included. But there's more to this design trope than you may realise, especially on the mechanical end of the scale. We start at the biological end though, with entirely spaceborne creatures, made from flesh and with no regard for being a ship as well. A bare step away from these includes some basic measures for carrying passengers or crew, but really these can often be considered to be just coincidental things, with the crew being more like parasitic or symbiotic creatures within the host. Another teeny tiny step away from pure spaceborne creatures are the huge Tyranid bioships from Warhammer 40k. In a way, these are much more ship-like, as they have features to engage in space combat, as well as acting like cargo ships for biomass used to invade and consume planetary surfaces. We're going to meander a bit now because things can vary a lot in how far one particular design goes down the sides of bio or mechanical. Take Moya from Farscape for example. She is a Leviathan, a race of sentient beings who live in space and even have a natural method of FTL travel. In terms of appearance and function though, they veer heavily towards the mechanical, with metal everywhere and convenient flat surfaces throughout because they were designed that way by the godlike builders. That makes Moya a very interesting design because you certainly wouldn't assume that she was a living, sentient being from her appearance. The same goes for her offspring Talon, who again seems far more like a ship that was inspired by sleek biological forms rather than being a living being himself. One thing I want to note though is that while yes, Moya looks like a sleek spacecraft and her interior has many concessions to usability by people, the use of repetitive, curved, flowing shapes is a great way of including biological forms. Really though, this is just an excuse to mention the organic architecture of Kendrick Bangs Kellogg, particularly his high desert house in Joshua Tree, California. It's made of stone and metal, but look at it! Those objects that subtly change shape or size with each new repetition to give the impression of a rib cage, or a spine, or a seashell are amazing without being directly based on real biology. Even the humble fence outside makes use of this style and looks great because of it. Let's get back to running down the scale from bio to mech with Babylon 5, which treated biotechnology as the pinnacle of what was possible. Vessels that integrated it were the most powerful and most resilient, demonstrated most obviously by the Vorlons and Shadows. The living Vorlon ships sit just on the bio side of the fence pretty well with the combination of flowing shapes but with clear spacecraft components. Their sworn enemies, the Shadows, also make use of their own biomech ships, but I'm not sure these are quite alive in the same sense as the Vorlon ones are, as they require the integration of a pilot to act as their computer. The third civilization that made heavy use of this style of craft were the Minbari, whose ships all appear very organic in their styling, like aquatic creatures with large fins and skin patterns. This goes double for the White Stars, which went above and beyond with the inclusion of Vorlon bioarmor in their designs. Some similar examples from Stargate Atlantis are the Wraith ships, which seem like very prototypical biomechanical spacecraft. They are grown and can regenerate, but they are still very much just spacecraft, albeit ones with organic-inspired forms. Right in the middle on the biomechanical spectrum are the various Combine synths in Half-Life 2. They all clearly originated as some living being, either intelligent or just creatures that then either had traditional technological components grafted onto or into them, or even grown as part of them. They're very, very cool, and I often include them in the various top 10 lists I've done, partly because of these reasons. They're right up there as some of the best biomech stuff there is, in my opinion. Warframe's Sentient are one of the more alien examples of this middle road area between bio and mechanical, appearing much more like strange, metallic, bone-shaped things. This also applies to what few spacecraft they have, though really these craft are living beings themselves. Hun Hao is somewhat like the father of the Sentients and is gigantic. Pregasa, the original Sentient, is even bigger. As well as the Warframes themselves, there's also the Infested, which are very much on the biological side of things, but they do have the Mutalist strain, which was capable of taking over various robotic units into their ranks. There's also the Grineer's bulgy and round technology, especially their spacecraft, which sit firmly in the realm of just having somewhat biological shapes. Another style of bioship design in the middle of the scale is having the two sides be distinct and separate, but still integrated together like a cyborg. Cylon vessels are great examples of this, particularly the Raiders, since while they may externally appear to be fighter craft, their inside is all guts and organs. They're also fairly intelligent creatures in their own right, to the point where lobotomizing them is seen as a barbarous act that causes a civil war among the Cylons. Base stars are fairly similar but have many more concessions to needing to be a vessel for others. Their biological side only really manifests in particular locations like the hangar bay and in them being able to heal themselves, as seen with the Rebel base star regenerating its damaged spars. Moving away from using living biological components, we get Mass Effect's Reapers, which are an interesting way of approaching biomechanical design. They are very much on the mechanical side of things, being technological objects, but they all use forms taken from real-life creatures. The prototypical Reaper is a Reaper cuttlefish. The destroyers are leaf insect nymphs. There's a bit of biomimicry in their designs, but more on that in a moment. The bio side of things really comes out in how they are created, being made up of the melted down remains of thousands or millions of people that were harvested for that purpose. Each Reaper is also a living being of vast complexity who considers themselves to be equivalent to a civilization rather than something as mundane as mere personhood. This repurposing of living creatures also applies very strongly to their ground level troops, where you can see what poor soul was taken over and converted to their side and integrated with strange technology in the process. Another similar style of biomech designs is the machines in The Matrix, which are very much on the mechanical end of the scale. Everything the machines use, from the harvesters to the sentinels, are all very much inspired by real biological forms, particularly those from an aquatic environment. Almost everything they have has lots of crustacean exoskeleton based details, all the little spines and shapes everywhere, and their city is a coral reef. The human vehicle designs also touch on this very slightly, but it's far less apparent than what the machine designs make use of, though the hero ship in Resurrections blends the two styles together. As I mentioned before, biomimicry is a key part of biomechanical designs. However, I think there's a distinction to be made here for designs that are creature-shaped but still very traditionally man-made and industrial in appearance. I've got two really good examples of this, starting with the crab suit from last week's breakdown video. I brought up how RDA came up with the design of the SMP suit by basing its form on that of a crab, which was the in-universe justification, but that was also how the design process went in real life. They started out being more centaur-like, but got honed down to the grabby, crabby suit we know today. The ornithopters from Villeneuve's Dune are the second example. Yes, they are very much based on dragonflies in overall form, and with how their amazing flight mechanism works, but they are still clearly aircraft, taking a lot of design cues from helicopters and such. Various ships throughout the Guardians of the Galaxy also make use of forms inspired by animals, with the Milano and ships like it having wing feathers and lots of articulation. Also, the Bowie in 3 has a fairly insectile shape, but mirrored horizontally. In general in sci-fi, there's also a lot of mechs and robots that do similar things, such as the Tachikoma from Ghost in the Shell being jumping spiders. Another different take on biomechanics is subtly evoking the feeling of biological forms using highly industrial or mechanical objects. Two easy examples of this are Elysium from Pandorum and to some extent the hard-angled skeletal shapes seen in the USG Ishimura, but I talked about those two in last year's Spooky Ships video already. The very last version of biomechanical design is objects that look that way just by coincidence. They end up looking grown rather than built as a result of that shape being the optimal form. For example, the Bristol Centaurus 661 radial engine and all the pipes routing around it, or the underside of the F-35 with all the chunky aerodynamic shapes that give it the appearance of musculature just beneath the surface. There's also the B-2 Spirit, which strongly resembles a bird of prey from the side due to its stealthy shape. Speaking of stealth, that's what our next video would be about, so subscribe if you haven't already. There's a wide range of biomechanical designs, from the fully organic to fully machine, with many variations in between. If you know some cool examples we didn't include, then hit up the comments below. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our Spacefighter design reference book. Alternatively, you can support us directly through YouTube by giving us super thanks or by becoming a channel member. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.